Good afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time of day it is for you people. This is Aaron the Pedantic, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time, since I've been bitching about 5th edition lately, to try and expose you to something that maybe you can use as an alternative. So I'm just going to do a quick video going over a few reasons why Dungeon Crawl Classics is awesome. So I'm not saying it is better than whatever you're playing or worse. I'm just saying that it's awesome, and I'm going to try and share why. For me, it is probably one of my favorites. So, reason number one, it is easy to learn. So, if you are currently playing 5th edition, you can easily learn this system. Dungeon Crawl Classics is made from some extremely simplified rules from 3rd edition. So, basically, the whole D20 add modifier, all of that kind of stuff. You have three types of saving throws. You have reflex, you have will, and you have fortitude. It's exceptionally easy to learn. There's not a whole bunch of like skill stuff you need to learn. Most of it is just kind of like, well, does this make sense for this kind of character? Or it's explicit, mostly in the case of the thief. So very easy to learn. The characters are very straightforward as far as how they are put together. It takes like a minute to generate characters, and it's basically all randomized for the most part. So you just kind of get what you get. And some people aren't going to like that because they like to do the whole building thing. And again, this isn't for everybody. For me, I ended up wanting something that had a little bit more emphasis on just playing the character and not so much creating the character. And this is a game that's all about that in many ways. You do get to choose your class and stuff like that usually, unless you roll a demi-human, like a halfling, an elf, a dwarf. Those are actually their own classes in and of themselves that kind of emphasizes what makes them unique, so they don't feel just like humans but this. They feel very specific, but there's also some kind of cultural implications there that may not fit in your worlds that you create. But this is kind of like sword and sorcery, low magic, sort of low magic. It's pretty crazy magic, honestly, but more reserved, I guess. It's definitely not Forgotten Realms or anything even close to it. So, secondly, player skill over builds. So I already kind of went into this a little bit. So basically, you roll an occupation at 0 level. There is 0 level. And basically, you might have 1 to 4 hit points. A lot of times, you'll end up with a 1 hit point character. And what you do is you go through this thing called a funnel. Now, Dungeon Crawl Classics has a newer sort of edition, I guess, called DCC Lankmar, that is trying to fit into the Lankmar world. And one of the things that they did is they abandoned the 0 level thing, as a concept to try and emphasize characters that are a little bit more survivable, have a little bit more impact. But one of the things about Dungeon Crawl Classics is basically they teach you from the very beginning that your characters ain't shit unless they can survive a little bit. So a lot of times you don't even give them names. You usually roll like 3 or 4 characters up. They're at 0 level. You'll have random stats. There's actually some really cool apps like from Purple Sorcerer Games that let you roll these things up just like instantly. And it'll roll up their occupations. They have skills based on that. It'll calculate their modifiers. It'll calculate their starting gear. Usually what you end up having for a 0 level adventure is a whole bunch of peasants with like pitchforks and shovels and chickens and hunting hounds, and occasionally you'll have like maybe a caravan guard with a spear and some leather armor. But for the most part, they are fumbling through a dungeon and dying in massive numbers to try and get through and become level 1, and then to kind of like progress. So like I said, no builds really. So where do you get creativity? All those kinds of things. It's all in player skill. It's all in how you choose to play the game, how you manipulate your resources and use them and take risks and come up with unique plans and things like that. There are a lot of resources that you have at your disposal that are really cool, that are not the kinds of things that you might get in a lot of games. So kind of like inspiration, you have the whole luck system. I might go into the luck system in a minute. I can't remember if that's further down the list, but actually, I'm pretty sure it's not. So the whole thing is you have all these different things that you can spend. So you have a luck stat instead of your normal core 6 stats. They kind of like rolled charisma and wisdom together into personality. Everything else is pretty much the same. Except for they flipped dexterity into agility, but it's basically the same. But basically, you have this luck stat that sometimes you'll do these things called luck checks. So you have, you roll 3d6 to get your luck stat at the beginning, and then you roll under whatever that score is in order to pass on a luck check. So basically, the more luck you have, the more often you pass these checks. So these checks might be used to determine if you stumble on something or something of that nature. There's actually some classes that utilize the luck in a lot of different ways, like the warrior. Whenever they roll a critical, there's an actual critical chart that they add their luck modifier to their roll in the crit chart. The higher they roll in the crit chart, the more devastating the damage is. Similarly, there's a fumble chart. So if you roll in the fumble chart, you actually use the inverse of your luck modifier to, try and roll lower. So if you can roll down to a 1, basically nothing bad happens to you. So that's one of the resources you have. The other thing about luck is you can spend it in order to boost a roll. So let's say you're in a horrible situation. You desperately need to make this attack hit. And, or by God, you're just probably all going to fucking die. You can spend some of your luck points. You don't get them back unless you're a thief or a halfling, or unless you do some kind of thing towards your alignment that basically the gods kind of give you more favor. But you can spend your luck points on a 1-for-1 basis to boost a roll to make sure something happens. More often than not, this tends to be something that the spellcasters desperately need because whenever you're casting spells, actually I'll get to that in a minute. But let's just say that is just one of the resources that you need to manage as a player to be smart. Because if you use up all of your luck literally runs out. There are times when you will do a luck, like basically you say, all right, who has the lowest luck? And then it's like, oh, I've got like 5. And then you're like, well, you poor bastard. You're the one who's going to be targeted by blankety blank, that kind of thing. So luck is a very cool feature. And let's go to the next one. All right, magic is unpredictable. So that's the thing I was kind of building into. So whenever you cast a spell in this system, you are not guaranteed that the effects are going to happen. Basically, you need to make a spell check. The spell check is easier and easier depending on how high of a level you get and how intelligent you are if you're a wizard, or how high your personality is if you're a cleric. Those things factor in, and the higher that you roll, the better your outcome is. So basically, you can have a level 1 spell like Magic Missile. I think yeah, it's pretty sure it's level 1 on this. Yeah, it is. You can have a level 1 spell like Magic Missile, and if you roll high enough, like let's say you roll a natural 20, you dump some luck into it, you dump some of your other stats into it, and then you just make this you roll like a 32 or something like that. Well, basically what happens is the Magic Missile goes from just being like 1 dart that's going to do a d4 damage to basically being like 10, 15 darts that each do like 3d6 damage. So, and they can travel like anywhere within a mile, and they are guaranteed to hit the target. Like, it doesn't matter if there's obstacles in the way or whatever. Basically, it gets fucking crazy. I was in a game once where we had a wizard who was played by a friend, Bria, and she used Spellburn. and basically used up like her strength, which spellburn is another resource that you can use. You can basically burn up your stats temporarily in order to get a huge payoff for a spell. So this would be kind of equivalent to like using your own life essence, maybe using your own blood for a sacrifice, that kind of thing. But anyway, so she made it where she spent 20 points in this spell burn that made it where she automatically got a natural 20 on her roll. And so basically what ended up happening was she was using Magic Shield, which is basically the shield spell. But in DCC, it can apply to multiple people. And in this case, it affected everybody within, I think it was like 10 feet. We all had an increased 10 AC. We all had basically missile attacks would be mitigated up to 5 points of damage, which means most of them, even if they did hit us, wouldn't even really hurt. And so like we just kind of like breezed through a good part until she was knocked out of the boat and eaten by sharks. So anyway, magic, very unpredictable. The thing is also if you roll like a nat 1, then there's a chance at corruption, and basically you'll lose your spell for the day. Corruption can be all kinds of crazy things, and even the spell itself, just like knowing the spell, being able to cast it. Whenever you first learn new spells, you roll on a chart called Mercurial Magic, and basically you want to roll high, so your luck is added to the result. And basically there's this huge chart full of random things, and one of those things, the thing that you roll, is going to be what happens every time you cast this spell. So for instance, I have a wizard in my current party who, on his spell Chill Touch, every time he casts Chill Touch, basically it will heal everybody within, I think it's like 15 feet of him, for like 1d6 HP. So like basically he can, situationally, he can be like, all right, I'm going to use Chill Touch. I'm going to heal everybody around me. And then I'm going to run in and then touch them, to touch the enemy to do necrotic damage or whatever. So it's a great finisher, or it's like kind of an off healing spell, because basically it just imbues his hand with necrotic energy and he can use it or not use it. So what else? You can, you don't run out of spell slots. Basically what happens is so many spells, but you can keep on casting them as long as you don't fail. Whenever you do fail, sometimes you lose them, sometimes you don't. Usually you do lose them. But you can use spell burn, which basically I can use up like 1 point of strength, 1 point of stamina, or 1 point of, which stamina is basically con. I forgot to mention that. Or I can use 1 point of agility, and kind of consume that in order to get that spell back. You have to spend as much of the points as the level of the spell is in order to get it back. And then basically whenever you rest for a night, you get 1 point back every night. So this is how all these resources kind of tie together. And you also have magic that's just fucking crazy. You do have to have you have to have access to the rule book pretty readily, which is kind of different, but it's a little bit easier if you have a PDF, for one, because you basically, what you do is whenever you get a new spell, you just write down the page number, and then every time you cast it, you flip to it to see what the result is. Obviously, all you have to do is add 10 to whatever the spell level is. Actually, it might be 12 or 11. I think it's 11. You add 11 to the spell number. If you roll under that, then you fail regardless. But anyway, so you can just write down the number, then go to the PDF, hit the page number, then bam, you're there. Or you can use an app made by Purple Sorcerer that basically you just hit this spell. All right, this is what I rolled, and then it gives you the result. So it's very quick. It doesn't slow things down hardly at all, especially because the rest of the rules are fairly easy. What else? So you got unpredictable magic. The wizards, like, your spells are mostly determined randomly. So no wizard is really going to be that similar to another wizard most of the time. There's enough spells that it's kind of uncommon for you to end up with a lot of the same spells. And it's kind of built into the book that you should kind of be able to figure other spells out. And it's also really neat flavor wise because spells aren't really a like scholastic type thing. Like the way I do it's not going to be the way that person does it. You know, it's like you all come to a specific understanding to make it work, and that's why the mercurial magic exists, to kind of separate them from each other. The clerics can also cast spells. Their healing is not actually a spell; it's just a gift that they have from their deity. So, and there's a little bit of extra dimensions there that make things interesting because basically your deity hates certain things depending on what deity you choose. So some deities are going to hate abominations more than anything. Some of them will hate undead. Some of them will hate murderers. You know, it just really depends on what it is. And instead of turn undead, you have turn unholy. So you can actually, you know, make murderers, you know, flee for their lives because that's what your deity hates. That's what you use for your turning, and you can actually smite them to death with it. So let's see, what is the next thing? Oh yeah, I was going to mention they also have disapproval. So whenever they roll a natural one, whenever they are casting a spell or trying to heal, then basically their deity gets pissed off and gets progressively more pissed off. And the thing is, there is basically a chance whenever they get disapproval that their deity will force them to go on a mission of some kind. And so it can, you know, kind of fuck things up a little bit. But the cleric is really very powerful in this system and very cool. A lot of fun to play. All right. So this game is deadly as fuck. Like I said, when you start out 0 level, you have usually less than 4 HP. And whenever you hit 0 at 0 level, you're dead. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're just fucking dead. Whenever you hit 0 at first level and beyond, basically what happens is you have up to a certain number of rounds to, you know, try and flip over the body to discover like how badly you were injured. And what happens is if they get to you in time and they flip your body to check on you, then you do a luck check. And so remember how I was saying your luck runs out? So typically most people will have less than, I'd say about 12 luck usually. That's kind of like an average roll. So that means that they would have a 60% chance of still being alive. And then basically like the more it happens to them, they start like taking injuries and things like that. And it becomes harder on them. But for the most part, death it's serious and it happens a lot. Lots of very deadly traps, very deadly creatures. Combat happens very quickly. You don't have creatures with tons of health. You have creatures that hit hard and die quickly. So there's not a whole lot of long, drawn-out affairs. And the adventures that are made for the game, which there are tons of, there's I think over 100 right now published adventures by them that usually run about $9.99 each, and they're fantastic. They all are very deadly. There's a dungeon that I'm running right now for my Friday group where they could have easily picked up a scroll that if they use it can just outright kill their character. So like it's dangerous. It's very, very, very deadly system. And that's part of what's really fun about it for people that may, feel like their actions don't matter quite as much in 5th edition, because like at the end of the day, you have a pretty good understanding that you're going to be getting out of this just fine. All right, so number 5, fantastic first and third party support. So Goodman Games, they are the ones that publish Dungeon Crawl Classics. They are constantly putting out books. You have so many things that are kind of like built around Dungeon Crawl Classics, so many product lines. So like I said, there's like 100 different adventures at least. They're all written wonderfully. They have fantastic art. You can look up Doug Kovacs does a lot of the art, and there's several other ones. It's just very old school black and white and very stylistic, just fucking cool to look at. The adventures are mostly like kind of in this particular veneer of like quasi-medievalism, but at the same time like wacky wild magic bullshit within it. That's exceptionally deadly. So you have very crazy wizards. And while they have that, they have all kinds of things that kind of branch off of that. So there is the Chained Coffin setting, which is by, oh god, that's going to kill me, I can't remember his name off the top of Michael Curtis. That is basically like this Appalachian real world setting. So it's like, you got a whole bunch of dumb hillbillies. Not to be mean, I'm from Texas, so and so the setting is like drastically different, but it works really well because the system just, it works in a lot of different situations, just not in like a high magic situation, really. There is Hubris, which is by Mike Evans. It's not an official DCC thing, but it's basically made for DCC. That's by DIY Productions. Fantastic. I actually use a lot of that stuff in my Friday game. It's basically a very savage, dark metal like kind of place, and very it refers to itself as like visceral adventures or something like that, but very deadly. A lot of dark themes. It has like a blood witch, it has like a murder machine. Those are some of the classes it adds, and they're fucking awesome. There are the Purple Sorcerer adventures that are also made that are fantastic. There is the app made by Purple Sorcerer that makes it where you can easily generate new characters, that you can see, like, use the charts on there to roll spells, to roll criticals, to roll fumbles, all those kinds of things. It's all built in. There is there's a lot more than that too, and like the system has other variants as well. Like I said, there's the DCC Lankmar book that came out, which it is balls deep into the Fafford and Gray Mauser books by Fritz Lieber. So basically, it has this whole different feel to it. It gets rid of clerics, it gets rid of zero level. It's more about like kind of living among thieves guilds in like these dank, like dirty cities, where people are like, just getting all these riches and drinking expensive wine. And it has these really cool rules for getting luck back by carousing and all this kind of stuff. DCC Lankmar is like reason enough to just buy the core book, which, by the way, soft cover, like $24.99, I think. Hardcover is more expensive, but I don't own it, but I want to. Eventually I'll get it. And then there is also Mutant Crawl Classics, which is the post-apocalyptic one. It has like animal people and, just all kinds of post-apocalyptic themed things. And that one's also by Michael Curtis, and that one is really cool. So DCC is fucking awesome. The books, you could even just buy the main book and then just mine it for ideas. One of the really cool things that it has in the DCC core rulebook is, for one, it has the critical charts. I would use those critical charts with any D&D game. Absolutely, 100%. I would use the magic sword or magic item creator like for anything, because it's very unique. You come up with all these really awesome things that these equipment, that they can do. I would use that to make new dragons, because the dragons in 5th edition, it's like, here's a stat block for this kind, here's a stat block for this kind, this has like an entire like random generation method where you end up with really interesting dragons with all kinds of personality quirks that, like, just check it out. Like I said, $25. I know that it's, times are hard right now, but it's awesome. So I highly recommend it. If you're not, wanting to drop dough on it, but you're interested in what the system looks like, they have quick start rules for free online at DriveThruRPG. They very frequently sell like $5 booklets with those as well. There's all kinds of products for this thing. You can, whenever the pandemic dies down, probably find road crew stuff happening. There's actually, you can do road crew stuff online. Basically, the road crew is almost kind of like the whole Adventure League concept, except for the fact that, it's just public games. The judge can't say no to you. Like, they can't just be like, no, you can't play, I don't want you. They set up a time, people show up, they run the game for them. And DCC is such a game where you can have 8 people at a table and you can run a game game pretty well. So ultimately, it is an awesome RPG. I highly recommend it. Clearly, if you are like huge into building characters and stuff like that, this probably isn't going to be your favorite. You could probably still get a lot out of the experience, but you're going to be missing that core, component that really makes you happy. And, that's probably not for you, and that's fine. But for the rest of us, this is fantastic stuff, and I can't recommend it highly enough. So give it a look at the very least. And thanks for watching. I'm trying to put out videos pretty regularly. I am responding to comments a lot more than I used to. And yeah, I'm enjoying all of the feedback and all of the people stopping by and leaving their opinions, because I like to have these discussions. So thank you for your time. Have an awesome weekend.